And that giant cacophony on today, the 23rd of November, as we mark Doctor Who's incredible 62nd anniversary, it tells you you're listening to the Power of Three podcast, coming to you live and direct from Scotland. I'm Kenny Smith, and I'm joined by my exclusive coterie of co-conspirators, bringing some in-depth insight, charm, wit, compassion, love, sex, money, violence, religion, injustice, and death. Yes, it's my co-conspirators.
Hello, I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to be here. Happy Doctor Who anniversary, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the very amusing comic book cover that I tweeted today.
Oh, and it's me next. Yes. Hi, it's John, providing none of those qualities that were described a moment ago. But I'm very happy to be here on this wonderful anniversary pod. So delighted.
Hi everyone, it's Stevie here. I'm absolutely delighted to be here on the anniversary, as Kenny says, and I just did a quick sum and realised that Doctor Who is 7 years older than me. Oops.
Interesting.
It's 11 years older than I am, because I'm the child of this group.
It's about 9 and a third years older than me.
Oh, are we doing this?
No,
Okay.
we're not.
No, there's no obligation.
5 years older than me. Bloody hell. Thanks for the reminder. Is that the Grim Reaper I see in the corner?
Well, I never even thought about it until Kenny said just there.
Yeah.
And I thought I'd just do the quick sum. Thankfully, I'm last in the old pecking order for the alphanumeric names. And I thought, well, I've always thought Doctor Who was so much older than me. But it's not really. And it's funny, we are mostly contemporaries.
Time is relative, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
indeed.
And so was my mum. But yeah, I think if we look at William Hartnell, he's old. He was born in 1908, so therefore we are all incredibly young.
Yes. We're all younger than most of the actors who've played Doctor Who to a point.
Of the 20th century.
To a point.
Yeah.
But yes, today we're here to do something a little bit different, because we're going to be talking about a Doctor Who story by Doctor Who, which is something that we don't often get the chance to do unless you've got some of the Colin Baker short trips, or indeed The Age of Chaos, his DWM comic strip. Then you could talk about those, but we're not going to do that. We want to do something a little less known. We're talking about Doctor Who and the Spare Part People. And this is based on a treatment in 7 episodes written by Jon Pertwee and Reed de Rouen back in 1970. Of course, this is something that we'd all heard rumoured for many years, but we didn't know much about it. Did anybody know any of the details about this one before I sent them a PDF?
Absolutely nothing. I had no idea. I had no idea that Jon Pertwee had thought, I'll just do a Doctor Who story. Well, obviously it wasn't him. That was someone else.
No, I was completely in the dark as well. And speaking as someone who, as we just said a moment ago, came to awareness of Doctor Who during the Third Doctor's tenure, and who to this day still dresses up in velvet jackets and ruffled shirts, I was gobsmacked that I didn't know this. And my first reaction was, who the hell wrote this? Pile of... And then I had to say, oh, it's actually quite good.
I think I was vaguely aware. I was sure I'd maybe seen John mention it on a convention panel video or something at one point. But I think in my head I confused it with one of the other ones that Big Finish had dramatised. They say equally. Is it called the Megra or Megra or
the
something?
The Mega by Bill Strutton.
I think I'd confused the two of them or conflated them maybe in my head a little bit. So I was certainly not aware. I was certainly not as aware as I am now of the ins and outs and the plot details and such like.
Yeah, well, this is a 24-page document, of which the first 4 pages are setting the scene, in which we get the cover page. We then get a breakdown of the storyline, what the story is about. Then we get the cast list, and then it goes into the actual story outline divided into 7 episodes. And for those of you interested, you can find it on the Season 7 Blu-ray PDF extras, where it was posted there by friend of the podcast, Richard Bignell. But we know about it, but the listeners don't. So why don't we pause briefly and actually have a listen to the full outline brought to life for us by some of our podcast pals.
We're not pausing briefly, we're pausing for 37 minutes. That's not a brief pause, is it? I hate to be that guy. Peter would be disappointed in me if I wasn't that guy.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll be back in 37 minutes. Listeners, hopefully you'll enjoy.
A man cycles through a village on the outskirts of Cambridge. It is late at night, and there is no one about as he turns into a side road and cycles past a house situated in its own grounds. Suddenly, he hears the sound of scuffling, and a voice cries out for help. He dismounts and hurries in to investigate. He finds a man lying in the driveway and catches a brief glimpse of several retreating figures, barely discernible in the darkness. Severely shaken by what he imagines to be their monstrous height and utterly confused, he stands helplessly as they vanish into the shrubbery surrounding the house. Doctor Who and the Spare Part People. Episode 1. Newspaper headlines, radio and television announcements, parliaments, the Chamber of Deputies, the Reichstag, Congress, the UN General Assembly. All are concerned with the baffling disappearance of an alarming number of famous men and women who have distinguished themselves in the art, science and sporting worlds in the leading industrial nations on both sides of the Iron Curtain. The situation has rapidly deteriorated into a brain drain of unprecedented and sinister proportions. The hard-pressed police and security agencies of all countries concerned, who after weeks of fruitless investigations are unable to account for the disappearances, or to forestall further instances of the kind, are roundly condemned by all concerned. UNIT quietly visits the village seen earlier, in the persons of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart and Doctor Who. They question the witness, who is unable to shed any further light on the mystery, and discuss the attempted abduction with local police officials. The intended victim, Dr. John Madden, an expert on nuclear heating techniques and professor of applied physics at Cambridge, appears to have died of natural causes, a coronary thrombosis, brought on by the abortive attempt to kidnap him, and UNIT clamps a security blanket on the whole affair. The press agrees to keep the news of Dr. Madden's death out of the papers. He was a bachelor, so there are no family complications, and arrangements are made for Doctor Who to move into his house. Doctor Who, after careful study of all the missing people's files, decides that each had unique abilities in his or her own field which cannot be duplicated, i.e. none can be replaced, and that the late Dr. Madden was no exception. He therefore decides to impersonate him on the theory that the unknown kidnappers, having once tried and being unaware of his death, will make a second attempt. The Brigadier reluctantly agrees to this, but decides to keep his own close watch on the proceedings. Doctor Who settles into the house to await the kidnappers, unaware that the sharp-eyed Brigadier has taken up residence in the potting shed out in the garden, equally determined to spare him the inconvenience of captivity should they arrive. Shortly thereafter, on a suitably dark night, they do indeed come to collect him, and Doctor Who snatches up a bag. He is packed and ready to depart at a moment's notice, and slips gleefully out to meet them. The new arrivals turn out to be mummies some 7 feet tall. Their body movement is laboured and unnatural, the skin on their faces resembling flaked and time-stained parchment of a deep mahogany colour. Their noses, mouths, ears and lower jaws badly chipped or worn away altogether. Their hands and feet are bandaged in embalming gauze, and only their luminous eyes indicate any sign of life. As the mummies close in on an utterly composed and unconcerned Doctor Who, the Brigadier materialises into the midst of them. He dives straight in, makes a brave effort to protect the Doctor, much to his annoyance, takes a pot shot at one of them from close range, and blows its head off. The head simply disintegrates. A great cloud of dust spurts up out of the headless trunk in place of blood, but the monster keeps on coming. The Brigadier empties a full clip into the thing. More dust clouds spurt out of the various parts of its anatomy, but apparently none the worse for wear. It reaches him, flings him to the ground, sits astride, and its huge bandaged fingers close round his neck.
Episode 2. The headless mummy is strangling the Brigadier, and Doctor Who saves his life by shouting something to the effect that he is his indispensable assistant and absolutely essential to his work. This does the trick, and the mummies lead them off. Doctor Who and the Brigadier find themselves in what appears to be a great Jules Verne type of submarine. Note, although only a small section need be shown of the set, the desired size of the vessel can be indicated by a scaled plan of the electrical system. This could be drawn on a large panel, resplendent with a large number of blinking varicoloured lights, etc. There might also be large ports cut into the bulkhead, which can show that they are travelling at great speeds underwater, using superimposed telecine. The craft appears to be completely automated because they never see any sign of a crew, but they soon discover that they are not alone and are part of a shipment of kidnapped experts, male and female, who later form the nucleus of the Brigadier's guerrilla force in a later episode. Doctor Who later discovers their global location simply by identifying various species of polar fish, heavily furred seals and other aquatic specimens. When he sees penguins feeding outside the ports, he knows they are in Antarctica, because this species of bird does not exist in the other pole. One final word on the submarine. Suggest a musical background, possibly of an electronic tonal quality, which some of the passengers might find annoying. When the sub reaches its destination, a bulkhead panel simply slides open and everyone is directed by tannoy loudspeaker, a curiously flat voice, to disembark into a subterranean tunnel, which has been hacked out of solid primeval ice. Further tannoy instructions direct them to a steep ice slide, and they are ordered to place themselves on mats or small toboggans, and, one by one, they descend down the chute. When they reach the bottom of the chute, mummies appear to escort them through a bewildering labyrinth. Here there is an abrupt change in temperature, from below freezing to well above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and, as they slowly ascend, they pass a large, clinical room which contains what is promptly identified by Doctor Who as a computer of unprecedented size and design. As Doctor Who moves towards the room to have a closer look at the computer, a mechanical monster leaps towards him, snarling like a robot guard dog. The mummies prod them forward before they can get more than a brief passing glimpse of the thing. A sort of mobile stainless steel mouth bristling with glittering needle-sharp metal teeth. This is attached to a series of centripetal legs to give it swift mobility, and in total it is not a very pleasant sight. The mummies proceed on through the labyrinth with Doctor Who and the others, and they suddenly find themselves in a large, brilliantly lit and luxurious appointed reception hall. There is no sign of the mummies, who have presumably remained behind in the labyrinth, and Doctor Who notes that the room is housed in what appears to be a large beehive-like edifice, encompassed outside by gardens and green fields. A temperate strip some 2 miles in depth, which in turn are hemmed in by the Antarctic ice pack stretching endlessly in all directions. A genial, if somewhat outlandish, delegation of elegantly clad courtiers is on hand to greet them. We shall have more to say about these people later on, and Doctor Who later likens their dress and elaborately coiffured hairstyles to those worn in Minoan Crete some 4,000 years ago. The court chamberlain, an eccentric dithering gentleman called Beltub, welcomes them with great pomp and ceremony. Then they're hustled off by various groups of giggling female retainers to private quarters, where Doctor Who and the Brigadier, and presumably the others, are bathed, oiled, perfumed and garmented for an audience with the king of this strange place. Later, en route to His Majesty, they get some breathtaking views, both from within and outside the beehive, and Doctor Who proves to be a walking encyclopedia of information. Example: he assumes quite correctly that the strip of fertile land which encircles the beehive is made possible by an ingenious system of undersurface heating. Doctor Who indicates a shrine of some sort to the Brigadier. Definitely pre-Greek, most likely Minoan, one of King Minos' people, possibly old Daedalus who could turn a hand to almost anything. My word, look at that! They have moved on to admire a large oil painting. Far superior to his Blue Period. And they got him too? A bit further on is a large port-like window. Rather a good heating system. The whole of Antarctica not more than 2 miles away, and here we are, warm as toast. Remarkable, replies the preoccupied Brigadier. The point being, how the devil are we going to get out of here? The Court Chamberlain, their old friend Prince Beltub, ushers Doctor Who, the Brigadier, and some of the other new arrivals from the submarine into the throne room. He struts pompously before them through a tunnel of twittering faces. Note, the courtiers. These people, both male and female, are magnificently overdressed and elaborately painted. They look like beautiful dolls. These are the spare part people who will be explained in a later episode. King Julius, a great admirer of Caesar, seated on a raised dais beside his queen, a languid oriental lady with a poisonous sting called Fong, and his eldest daughter, the Princess Mei Ling, almond-eyed and very much her mother's child in appearance, stands slightly behind, and, unlike everyone else in the room, she is curiously unsmiling. Julius is an astute, genial, easygoing, casual man of enormous charm, the embodiment of the boulevardier. He greets them affably, tells them to enjoy themselves, and gives them the freedom of the city. "You're free to come and go as you please, my dear sirs. Nothing is out of bounds to you here." Back in their quarters, Beltub readily responds to their questions. He informs them in a stream of colourful camp rhetoric that the king, my dears, simply brilliant. A student of history, you know. A man of science. A prince of untold wealth. Brought us here. At that time we numbered a minute proportion of our present flourishing population. Ghastly. Nothing but snow and ice everywhere. And look at us now. Divine. Like a flawless diamond. The ideal civilization. For the carefully selected, scientifically bred few, of course. Overcome with the sweet sound of his own voice, Beltub contrives to tell them everything, and nothing about this mysterious place and its ruler. Flowery verbiage, but very little else that could be of any practical use to them. Eager to come to grips with their situation, Doctor Who and the Brigadier waste no time when Beltub at last decides to leave. His footsteps have no sooner faded outside, and they are out in the corridor and turning down others on a recce of the place. They come to a door, slip past a sleeping sentry, and find themselves moving down a winding stairway, where they pull up rather hurriedly at the sound of a blood-curdling cry. Then, some distance below, they see the mechanical monster chasing a pair of terrified people. Their cries echo up along the walls of the stairwell as the monster reaches them and blocks out the view. Sudden silence. Then, as the monster turns, the stunned onlookers can see no trace of its victims, who have presumably vanished into that horrible, gaping mouth.
Episode 3. As the monster rolls over the floor towards the stairway, it is suddenly switched off. It seems harmless enough now in its inert state, but both men decide that discretion is the better part of valour and hurriedly retrace their steps back up the stairway. "One of those men," murmurs Doctor Who soberly, "looked regrettably like Dr. Bailey, Professor of Organic Chemistry at Oxford. Not a very pleasant way of being disposed of." They move through the corridors, streets, of the city, visit market stalls, pause to admire works of art, chat with the people. They enter laboratories, talk to researchers and technicians who are strangely reticent and obviously frightened to speak their minds. They meet some men coming out of a lecture and introduce themselves. One of the group, a young Chinese physicist, stares fixedly at Doctor Who, then slips hurriedly away. Doctor Who and the Brigadier move on unawares. Note: all the above, save for the citizens they meet on the streets, are kidnapped detainees from the outside world. They leave the dome and move out into a lovely garden. The Brigadier is impatient to get things moving and wants to begin straight away organising a guerrilla force and have a showdown with the king. He suggests beginning with the group who arrived with them on the submarine, but Doctor Who has too many other things on his mind to pay much attention. He wants to get to grips with that computer they glimpsed on their way up through the labyrinth. He wants to know why the King needs so many scientists to run the place. He wants a closer look at that monster, which he identifies with their frightening experience at the end of episode 2. And he's also curious about the people round the King, excluding the Queen and Princess Mai Ling, who seem different from the other people there. Doctor Who wants to know everything about the place before they leave, and that includes the mummies and how they function. The Queen sweeps into the throne room with the Chinese physicist and orders him to tell the King he knows about the imposter who calls himself Dr. Madden. The King hears him out and is greatly amused. He asks his Foreign Secretary to have his London agents check up on his true identity and decides to leave things as they are until they know. The Chinese physicist is thanked for his information. He was a former student of the real Dr. Madden at Cambridge, advised to keep his mouth shut and dismissed. The King puts machinery in motion to discover the true identity of Doctor Who and the Brigadier. Doctor Who and the Brigadier move up to a line of hedges, find an opening, and pass through to find themselves on the boundary which separates the Green Garden from the ice-bound wastes on the other side. In either direction, they can see mummies, apparently impervious to the sub-zero cold, out in the snow, manning meticulously spaced guard posts. And beyond, nothing but endless icy wastes. They know now that there is only one possible way out of the place, through the labyrinth and down the ice slide to the submarine. As they walk along the perimeter, the Brigadier inadvertently strays over the line where he is instantly caught up by hurricane-force wind and the terrible cold. Just in time, Doctor Who reaches out a hand and catches hold of him before he can be blown away. But can Doctor Who maintain his hold? In an incredibly short time, the Brigadier looks like an iceman. The wind carries him off his feet. Doctor Who desperately holds on.
Episode 4. Doctor Who makes a supreme final effort and pulls the frozen Brigadier back over the line. The Princess Mai Ling slips secretly into Doctor Who's quarters to speak to him, and it transpires that she is very unhappy there and would like to escape to the outer world. He also learns that she has a good degree in mathematics and would like to pursue an academic career. She goes on to reveal some distressing facts concerning his father and his kingdom, i.e. that the people have become decadent through easy living and indulge in some barbarous pastimes, that those among the abducted scientists and artists who agree to cooperate are well treated, but go in fear of their lives because the penalty for failure there is either consignment to the deep freeze room, he finds out more about this in a later episode, or to the monster in the labyrinth. Doctor Who is puzzled, because he and the Brigadier have been given so much freedom there, but she points out that it is the custom in that each new arrival is given a few days to acclimatise before being assigned to a job or is otherwise disposed of. She adds that only the best, even among that distinguished company, are permitted to work, and that the majority are never seen again. She warns him to be careful, they promise to help each other, and she hurries off. The Brigadier is interviewing some prospects for his guerrilla force who run off in a panic as some mummies arrive and drag him away. Doctor Who has been invited to the King's private apartments, and as he moves to enter, one of the Princess's servants appears and slips him a note which tells him that the Brigadier has been carried off to the arena dungeons. And once inside the King's private rooms, Doctor Who is confronted with a carefully compiled dossier that not only reveals his true identity, but contains a detailed report on his past life and activities. The King is delighted, and in high good humour reminds him that the one thing lacking in his paradise, the secret of immortality, is about to be revealed by none other than the great Doctor Who himself. Doctor Who acquaints the king with certain facts relating to his extraterrestrial origin and tells him something of his unique physical makeup, as opposed to that of the Homo sapien on Earth, but strongly denies that he is capable of passing on the secret of his longevity. He says he simply does not know how it is done and, further, doubts that such a thing is possible. The king smiles, takes his arm good-naturedly, and leads him off to the arena. Gladiatorial games in the modern equivalent of the Roman Circus Maximus. Doctor Who sits in the royal box with a number of other guests. The king, queen, princess, and members of the royal retinue, the spare part people, are also present, as is Prince Beltub, who gorges himself with rich pastries and sweets throughout the gory proceedings. Doctor Who, an obviously unwilling spectator, is horrified to see world-famous athletes fighting for their lives in the arena, but during the excitement, he manages to take the princess aside. He passes her a tiny box containing a pill, confides that the Brigadier is liable to appear in the arena at any moment, and that his life might well depend upon his receiving the box. She hurries off. The princess haughtily bluffs her way into the dark passages beneath the arena, and reaches the Brigadier as he's being led up out of the dungeons. Somehow, she manages to control her revulsion for the mummies as she slips him the box just before he is pushed out into the arena. A worried Doctor Who sits beside the king, and an excited retinue makes bets on the outcome of the next event as the Brigadier steps into the centre of the ring. Note: the kind of event has yet to be decided, but it should be something which requires either great strength or speed. A worried Doctor Who holds his breath as the Brigadier swallows the pill, wondering whether it will work or not. A roar from the crowd as the wild beast or man, or whatever is decided in the script, steps into the ring and closes with the Brigadier.
Episode 5. Cries of admiration, shouts of encouragement, others of disappointment, as the Brigadier, with superhuman speed or strength, wins the contest. Then the entire assembly rise in tribute, save the royals, to the bewildered gladiator. Handkerchiefs are fluttered. The traditional thumbs-up signal is collectively turned towards the royal box. Doctor Who stands like a man made of stone. Then the king reluctantly concedes to the crowd, and the Brigadier, garlanded with flower wreaths, is hoisted on eager shoulders and led in triumph from the arena. Doctor Who grins appreciatively at the princess. His pill has been a roaring success. The Brigadier angrily attempts to gain entrance at the hospital and is forcibly rejected by guards. Inside, Doctor Who is laid out on an operating table, and a worried team of surgeons, although astounded at his unearthly physiology, twin hearts, etc., is unable to find anything that could possibly account for his rumoured immortality. Later, the king visits him in his hospital room and threatens to have him thrown into the labyrinth if he continues to resist his demands. Doctor Who reminds him that if he is indeed immortal, as the king appears to believe, then he surely will have nothing to fear from the monster. But the king retains his customary good humour, having yet another card up his sleeve. He suggests a prompt visit to the deep freeze room as soon as the good doctor is up and about again, and jauntily takes his leave. The Brigadier calls together some carefully chosen men at a clandestine meeting. Among them, a few with previous army training, a Russian marine engineer, and some technicians with knowledge of nuclear-powered engines, should they be fortunate enough to reach the submarine. The Brigadier outlines his strategy. They discuss plans for breaking into an armory to secure weapons, and here it is stated for the first time that the mummies must be computer-controlled, and will be difficult to deal with unless the computer can be found and neutralized. The king takes Doctor Who on a personally conducted sightseeing tour. First, they visit the deep freeze room. This is rather like a bank vault, Only here the drawers are larger and contain bodies frozen into a state of suspended animation instead of cash. Doctor Who recognizes a few kidnapped scientists among them, and is surprised that such gifted men should be disposed of in this manner. The King explains that he is a great believer in duplication, and should one fail to measure up, or become ill or die, he always keeps a spare here in the drawers to take his place. He goes on to say that some of the drawers contain people who simply refuse to cooperate, and he is giving them time to cool off, so to speak. For one brief moment, it looks as if the King has decided to have Doctor Who popped into one of the drawers, but he thinks better of it and takes him on to the computer room. This turns out to be an ingeniously contrived machine. It runs itself, sees to its own maintenance, and has stored up a memory bank of such proportions that it is capable of thinking for itself. The King says that the entire nuclear apparatus which heats, lights and otherwise serves the city is controlled, run and serviced by this one machine. And, the King proudly concludes, only it can destroy itself. The King and Doctor Who move on to a section of the computer that deals with the manufacture of what has been called the spare part people. Logically, they fit into the general pattern of the King's ideas regarding the ideal society, in that a utopian city-state can only be governed by an elite race of supermen, and as the natural process of procreation does not produce such beings, it naturally follows that they should be made by artificial means. First, of course, it must be decided what kind of a person is required. Then this data is fed into the computer. Required: female, age 23, IQ 240, physically beautiful, athletic, biochemist, Nordic Italian.
Required: female, age 23, IQ 240, physically beautiful, athletic, biochemist, Nordic Italian.
2 suitable candidates are then found. A beautiful Scandinavian athlete, and B, an Italian biochemist of the required IQ. Both are fed through the slots into the machine. The required age is punched up, and the new person pops out of a third slot in the middle. Having explained all this, the King decides that there is no time like the present to put it to work. He punches up the required age, unlimited, on the age factor card, and has some mummy shove Doctor Who into one slot, and merrily pops himself into the other. Teletype strips begin to move across a lighted screen. Required: male, age 2000 years and preceding, IQ 300, health factor supernormal, King, Caucasian, death factor nil.
Required: male, age 2000 years and preceding, IQ 300, health factor supernormal, King, Caucasian, death factor nil.
The computer comes to life. Multicolored lights begin to flash. Wheels begin to spin. The sounds of whirring, chugging and clicking are heard from within. A rainbow neon tube begins to blink round the center slot. A metal chute lets itself down to the floor. And now, who or what is going to come out?
Episode 6. A pair of feet appear in the centre slot as the computer shuts itself off. The lights cease flashing and there is no more smoke. Silence. The King, a radically altered King, slides down the chute. He's incredibly old. His wrinkled skin resembles that of his mummies. But, more incredible still, he is alive. Senile, moribund, drivelling, palsied, but alive. Doctor Who emerges from the machine unaltered and somewhat thoughtful. He looks down at the King, allows himself a pensive shrug, and offers no resistance when the mummies come to take him away. Other mummies lift the king into a conveyance of some sort and load him gently into a lift also containing Doctor Who, which starts to ascend. The Brigadier and a few of his men, athletes, wrestlers, weightlifters, etc., whom he has presumably rescued from the arena, have broken into an armoury and are helping themselves to arms and ammunition. He sends a small party to find Doctor Who. Much wailing and weeping from the king's retinue in his bedroom. Prince Beltub, the Queen, and the Princess gaze in stricken wonder down on King Julius, who lies in state in his bed, although he is still alive. Beltub blubbers along with the rest. The Queen is beside herself with rage, and Princess Mi-Ling is waiting for the opportunity to slip out unnoticed. The Queen orders Beltub to find Doctor Who and have him thrown into the labyrinth. The Princess slips out. The computer alerts the mummies as the Brigadier and various squads of men move in to occupy various strong points throughout the city. He keeps in contact and issues orders by walkie-talkie radio sets. The mummies put up a stiff resistance. Panic in the palace as the computer announces the Brigadier's attack. Fox in a henhouse panic, screeching courtiers run around in circles. Doctor Who scrambles the mummies' receiving sets, through which they receive instructions from the computer, with one of his little gadgets, and escapes only to be caught again by the vigilant Beltub and his palace guards. Beltub is regretful, but he has his orders and carries them out. Doctor Who is tossed into the labyrinth. As the door closes, Doctor Who stands quite still until his eyes become accustomed to the darkness. Then he sees the princess, who overheard her mother's orders to Beltub and got there first, who offers him a roll of thread. She tells him that they will never find their way out again without it, and insists on accompanying him down the bewildering maze. They make their way down a series of tunnels, round a corner, and come face to face with the monster. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, the silence is broken by the ready voice of the computer. It warns the monster of their presence and activates it at the same time. A deafening roar echoes along the tunnel as it springs to life and lurches towards them, its teeth, like those in a circular buzzsaw, rotating at great speed round the gaping cavity of its great mouth. Doctor Who and the princess find themselves cornered in a cul-de-sac, and the monster is only a few feet away and closing fast when the girl screams.
Episode 7. Cat and Mouse. They see a thin opening and streak down a further maze of passages, letting out their precious thread as they go, with the monster in hot pursuit. The computer barks out fresh instructions, anticipating each twist and turn that they take, and it becomes a battle of wits between Doctor Who and the computer as to who reaches any given point first, themselves or the limpet-like monstrosity of a mobile mouth. Doctor Who has quite a lot to occupy him during these proceedings. Firstly, he must protect the girl and himself, which means a lot of running, twisting, turning and dodging. Secondly, he must remember to unwind the thread. And thirdly, he must think of some way to neutralise the thing, all of which proves rather difficult. But you can't win 'em all, even when you're Doctor Who. They become unstuck when the princess trips on something and falls. Quick as a flash, the monster is Johnny on the spot and has her dangling in some rather repulsive, we didn't say a pair because there are more than two, tin hands. Up to the mouth and all those spinning, clicking teeth she goes, but Doctor Who has already leapt behind the thing, pulled himself up on the back of its head, opened a panel, and before it can take a bite, he short-circuits the thing. Now Doctor Who knows that it will be only a matter of minutes before the computer finds and remedies the trouble, so he has no alternative but to reach the computer itself and destroy it before the monster destroys them. Having decided this, he empties his pockets, finds a small watch-like object, magnetic direction finder, of his own invention, tunes it in on the computer, and they follow a sound pip straight to the source, and as they step into the room, it reactivates the monster, who is soon heard thumping down the tunnel outside. It's only a matter of seconds now. Doctor Who takes a header into one of the slots, vanishes inside the computer, and proceeds to tinker. In sweeps the monster. The princess backs into a corner. Bang, clang, grind inside the computer, and it begins to protest. No, certainly not. That is expressly forbidden. Withdraw, it shrieks complainingly. The monster lifts the princess towards its spinning saws, whilst inside the computer, Doctor Who plugs in a small microphone and says, "Destroy yourself." There is an immediate series of explosions within the computer, and others more distant and far more violent in the city above. And as the monster lifts the princess up to its mouth, the spinning saws grind to a stop, and it becomes just another piece of old metal. Doctor Who emerges, looking immaculate as usual, from the wreckage, takes the princess by the hand, and together they follow the thread out of the room. Bedlam on the surface. The nuclear heating plants, the electrical system, everything that had been controlled by the computer has ceased to function. The green gardens have become a bleak desert of ice and snow, and Antarctic winds are sweeping unchecked through the open ports of the beehive. Blinding snow flurries whip through the unprotected corridors of the city, and the mummies, free of their computer control, have gone berserk and are killing everything that moves. In the palace, the Queen, Prince Beltub, and the courtiers have frozen into beautiful glacial statues. The Antarctic ice pack is slowly engulfing the city. King Julius dies in his room, embedded in a solid chunk of ice. As Doctor Who and the Princess turn up the final tunnel leading out of the labyrinth, they meet the Brigadier and his frozen men, who are fighting a rearguard action against a crowd of rampaging mummies. Doctor Who gathers the men together and leads them hastily back down into the labyrinth. They finally reach a spot where a number of tunnels branch off in every direction, only one of which leads down to the ice slide. Here, Doctor Who brings forth one of his gadgets, this time an extremely sensitive thermometer, and tests it at the entrance of each tunnel. When he reaches the coldest, he rightly decides that this must lead down to the ice slide, and with the mummies in hot pursuit, they scramble down the tunnel. When they finally reach the ice slide, Doctor Who directs them to sit down tandem fashion on its mats or sledges, and they don't have much time because the mummies are closing in fast. Doctor Who manages to find a piece of wood or metal to act as a blast shield and blocks up the end of the slide with it. Then, with the mummies rushing in from all sides, he produces a tiny explosive pill and flings it at the shield. The resultant jet-like blast propels them, like a train on tracks, at high speed up the slide and away from the rampaging mummies. Note, to achieve this effect, the actors are filmed sliding down a studio slide backwards, then the clip is reversed and speeded up in the telecine. Doctor Who and the others, the Brigadier, the Princess, and about 10 survivors, manage to reach the submarine and cast off.
Episodes 1 and 4 were read by Ken Moss, Episodes 2 and 6 by Peter Watson, Episodes 3 and 7 by Craig Brawley, and Episode 4 by James Hadwin Bennett. Incidental music by John Baker of the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. And there we go. That was Doctor Who and the Spare Part People. So, where to begin? John, you gave us a wee sort of teaser comment there at the top.
Yeah. As I said, I was somewhat underwhelmed. I felt it was a bit shambolic. Although, having said that, it reminded me of the kind of story that I might invent myself as a child when I was playing with my, Dennis Fisher, Doctor and TARDIS, or my Action Men surgically enhanced to look like the Master and things like that.
That's a question. How? What did you do?
We'll come back to that.
He gave him etheric beam locators.
Yes, we'll come back to that. But yeah, it had everything but the kitchen sink in it, and that's why I thought to myself, as I was listening to it, this person clearly has only the most superficial knowledge of what Doctor Who is. And again, the fact that he kept referring to the character as Doctor Who, I thought this is an outsider, and things like the Brigadier in the arena fighting with superhuman strength and agility and stuff like that. I thought, no, this person doesn't really know what the show is about. But having said that, I thought to myself, nowadays I would imagine this is someone feeding all of the Pertwee scripts into AI and saying, come up with a seven-parter, because it has this mix of things that are really true to the show and that work really well, and some things that are completely wrong, for want of a better word. And so for that reason I thought this is quite prescient too, because although the script, I'm sure, was kind of, or the outline was politely received and then chucked in a drawer, a lot of the ideas in the script, knowingly or deliberately or whatever, I don't know, did come back. There are echoes of, bits of the Time Monster, bits of the Time Warrior, God, even bits of the Leisure Hive, you might say. There's all sorts of stuff, so it's an incredibly wide, broad canvas, but somewhat narrow, I think. Yeah, a very interesting document. It just shows you that I don't pay much attention to the PDF files on the collection, or else I wouldn't have been in the dark about this one.
Stevie, where did you go with this one? Was it hit, miss, somewhere in between?
Well, let's see how we go at the end of this conversation. Great presentation, I should say, Kenny, because that really brings it to life off of a script. I much prefer that way of being introduced to this stuff, and there's some excellent voices.
Our readers are fantastic, and a bit of radiophonic stock music.
Yes, particularly the gentleman who read episodes 2 and 6. I thought he was very, very good.
Oh, the Scottish one.
Yes.
Mr. Watson.
Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson. Yes. Anyway, I interrupted Stevie. I will shut up again.
I felt it was it was kind of a pushing towards a Doc and Brig mini-series. That's what I was getting, because they kind of jettisoned the regular cast. There was nothing regular about that at all. But like John, there was elements there of all kinds of things. Now, I don't know where this fell between the making of what I'm about to say, but it had elements of impersonating an important man and hoping to get kidnapped in Day of the Daleks. I was wondering whether cheese and wine would be present.
Interesting.
I wondered at some point, how many Atlantises can we go to in Doctor Who? What's our record? Are we on 2 or 3 at the moment? Can't remember.
3.
So this could easily have been a 4th Atlantis. It was that kind of thing. Obviously, very much a Pertwee vibe. Didn't realise when I was initially reading it or listening to it, it was a Pertwee thing. And again, as John says, it's almost as if he's poured everything he knows about Doctor Who into it to write a story. And I've done the same. I mean, you don't want to see what I wrote when I was, 20. I'm not going to bring it to light again. We're not going to vocalise it. But, I put in everything. Cybermen, Daleks, blah, 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 because that's what I thought Doctor Who was. It's only as you get older and understand how these things are put together that you realise this wonderful phrase, it's all in the edit. And that's maybe what he didn't realise. He's writing a go story, but forgetting that the editors fix it in the end and make it something that people actually want to listen and watch. So, yeah, that was my instant thing. I mean, it was good, it was dashing, it was violent, I would say, potentially. And I do wonder if that was a studio-based production, how that would have worked. Because again, I'm kind of getting polystyrene Atlantis. We've only got room for like 2 sets, and one of them is about, half the size and 3/4 the size of the studio. But yeah, I mean, a good romp through. It would need a lot of chiselling, I think, to make it into an episode that we'd have been talking about 62 years later or whatever.
I got the sense that Pertwee really wanted to put Nicholas Courtney through his paces. I was interested at jeopardy for the Brigadier on quite a few of the cliffhangers. That was quite interesting. And again, as the others have said, a few elements which seemed familiar from other stories. I mean, I got hints, the impersonation sort of stuff reminding me of aspects of Spearhead from Space. I was, having just watched the Savages animation finally the other week, elements of that seemed to crop back up. I was struck by some of the details, like, the very precise info given on how they might suggest the interior of a submarine. Yet, how the heck were they going to film the rest of it in one studio at Television Centre?
They also talked about they're in the submarine, but they're watching penguins, and we're definitely wherever we are, because I just had this visions of a cartoon penguin. This works really well for audio.
Yes.
Past.
Miming for the benefit of our YouTube viewers.
Waving at the Doctor. Sorry, I interrupt, but I did. That was on the lines of, if you remember Blake 7, episode 1, where you've got Rog Blake sitting looking out of a window, and by episode 2, he's still in the same seat.
Yeah.
At the same time, but there's a bulkhead there. That was that kind of thinking. Oh, we need a window.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't.
Yeah. It was interesting. I mean, as we speak, Big Finish have just released a Third Doctor story. It's been co-written by their Third Doctor performer, Tim Treloar, and I've seen kind of mixed responses to it. I'm quite intrigued with the World War II aspect of it, so I might get to it eventually. So it seems like this is quite current just now to have the Third Doctor writing adventures for himself. It's quite funny. I was similar sort of things to the Pyramid of Mars one we did when it felt like vaguely recognisable as Doctor Who, but again you sort of wonder, like, the people that tried to write for Doctor Who in the 70s, had they ever actually watched it? Were they aware of what could be done and what couldn't? But some bits were interesting. I liked the way it was resolved with the oh yeah, that's the other thing that really struck me, is all the emphasis and discussion on the Doctor's immortality.
Yeah.
Rather than his status as a Time Lord. That was very interesting, which, I kind of thought, does John not know he's a Time Lord? Has he forgotten that? Did we really know what Time Lords properly, do we know, at that point obviously we didn't really know very much more about them. This was a few years before 12 Regenerations and all that. So there was some interesting stuff. And as the others have said, it did give me the sense that, some elements of it were familiar. And you sort of thought, oh, did Barry and Terence sort of think, oh, that's a good idea, John, we're going to nick that from you and we'll use that in a couple of years. It was a very interesting experience.
Yep, can't disagree with that. I think it did feel familiar, and a lot of it, like the Time Monster is the main vibe that I got from it. The fact there's a king there and he's up to his mischievous plans. I also got feelings of, particularly given that there's the Princess Mei Ling, I also was getting like Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, 1930s kind of serial vibes from that. And I was envisaging an awful lot of this as looking like those classic shows that used to entertain me in the school holidays and during the mornings. And I just had that sort of kind of structure to it as well.
I know, yeah, movies, the Republic movie serials, etc. Yeah, I know what you mean. It felt very much like that. Like, there was also, like, again, slight Edgar Rice Burroughs element of it, to heroes being transported to somewhere else and weird things going on. I think derivative is probably a fair word to use, maybe.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
You're all nodding sagely.
It didn't have to be Doctor Who. That's the other thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You could have stuck in two characters you didn't know and made it a political drama with a science fiction bent, and you'd have been away. You didn't need the Doctor, you didn't need the Brigadier, you could have used the actors. I wasn't quite sure also where it fitted in the production timeline, which is maybe why, all this about, was he a Time Lord or whatever. And I know John always said that, you just read the script. You don't get involved, and that was one of his quotes, I remember, you just read the script. And that kind of maybe explains some of this. He maybe doesn't quite understand the mythos behind it.
Yeah, because I get the impression that, given that it's a 7-part story, the fact that episode 1 opens with a pre-title sort of opening scene, and the fact it's just the Doctor and the Brigadier, I'm getting the impression that this must have been around the time of season 7 that he did this, before the new companion has arrived. So he must have known that Caroline John would be going. So is he just thinking, oh, let's have a story just for the Doctor and the Brig, which I thought was quite an interesting combo, because that's one that we've not really seen. We've had it in an audio. Big Finish have done Second Doctor and the Brig alone in the story with the Ice Warriors, but they haven't had just the Doctor and the Brig yet. And I thought that does give it a slightly different feel and a different dynamic.
And we saw how well it worked in the 5 Doctors when Patrick Troughton was with him for a huge part of the story. And that's partly down to the 2 actors, but I think him and Jon Pertwee could have done it. I think him and Peter Davison could have done it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have seen Matt Smith in the same vein. But I mean, that's just not, well, to quote, but age catches up with us all. It just wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But I seem to recall that Nick Courtney and Jon Pertwee were really good pals on there, and Jon was always encouraging Nick to do more. So maybe that was a deliberate step out. Let's just
it's a thought. Yeah, a bit of support. Yeah, a bit of boosting. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, you just get the sense that if it had gone, if Terence had whittled it down or had a go at it, it's one that Nicholas Courtney would have probably talked about quite a lot at conventions for the rest of his days. Pertwee putting him through his paces, as I said earlier. It was all that stuff was really interesting. It's a bit surprised we've not had more just Doctor and Briggs stories. Maybe Kenny should suggest to Mr. Briggs. Maybe he could suggest that Big Finish is a story that teams up the 12th Doctor and the Brigadier. That'd be interesting.
Well, I always thought how cool it would have been to have a series of Brig episodes set during the Time War when he was actually based on Gallifrey.
Oh.
Interesting.
So there you go. Copyright the four of us, obviously.
Well, sure. I'm not nicking it.
That's all your idea, yeah.
You could enter it in the Paul Spragg Memorial Competition. It's worth a shot.
That would require me to be able to write and not just...
I'm just popping that into ChatGPT now. What
other AIs are available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting the fact that you've got these characters. King Julius, who's obviously the big bad. I was trying to envisage who would play him, and I couldn't get away really from Brian Blessed.
Yeah, that was
very much my mental casting.
Oh, really? No, that's not how I pictured him at all. I pictured him as being like, because of the whole quest for sort of immortality, and I kind of visualised him as being older.
Oh.
Yeah, like a lot older, sort of, and wanting to kind of, fountain of youth things a little bit, and hoping to use the Doctor's immortality powers, for some of that. That's interesting.
The other one that came to mind for me was Joss Ackland. That's who I was kind of thinking of.
Right.
I was nearly about to do my Joss Ackland quote there from the film It Couldn't Happen Here. I used to have a girlfriend who sang on the radio. You went under a bridge and you couldn't hear her.
Also, let's not forget he played Denomulus in the fantastic Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
So
Gosh,
there.
I haven't seen that in years.
So there.
I love the idea of this computer sort of like, bring me an Italian woman and was she a Swiss? Yes, a Nordic scientist.
Attractive.
And we'll just sort of,
Attractive.
I will just combine
Come
them.
on.
But I found that such a bizarre, very
such a turn on. What? You found it really fired your imagination, and I sort of imagined, all sorts of things at that point. Which member of Girls Aloud, which member of the Saturdays, which member of the Sugar Babes. Yes, that sort of thing. I'll say the quiet part out loud. I don't mind.
That's not where I was going to go, but I'll go there now. Yeah, no, we won't. No, but I thought it was an interesting idea, to create these perfect human beings, and the fact they have got this plan of kidnapping people. Something that did intrigue me was the fact they've captured British athletes, because it's in the small support list. 2 well-known British athletes, weightlifters or footballers, is what Jon Pertwee noted. I had it in my head it would be Henry Cooper and somebody like Gordon Banks, or one of the England football team that won something apparently when they cheated in the year when the 10th Planet happened.
When did they? How did they cheat? Jeff Hurst performed admirably. What are you saying? Like,
he didn't score 3 goals. They only got 2. Never crossed the line.
Were you there?
Were you the game caller? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, were you at the match caller? As my Uncle Peter used to say whenever I'd get exasperated about something. Yeah. Interesting. You need to get over this, Kenny. It's all one world. This devotion to Scotland is not healthy.
International sport, it does help.
Okay, you two. I think we need a short trip where the Doctor goes back with VAR to 1966.
Do you know what? Actually, there is a short trip about the...
there's an 11th Doctor novel. Which...
There's also, I think there's a First Doctor short trip where the trophy gets stolen afterwards. It was stolen by a dog. Can't remember who wrote it, but it was very good.
Yeah,
Does it not feature in the...
Kenny's still bitter about the 1966 World Cup. Even if he only scored 2 goals, they still effing won. Get over it.
Is it not in that 14th Doctor strip as well? Does that not start off?
Oh,
yes.
That's right, yeah.
And the liberation of the Daleks,
Yeah.
and it's also in the Richard Dungworth book, Extra Time, coming soon in the Power of the Free podcast. So, yes.
Anyway, this is metamorphosized into chat about association football. It's not what I signed up for. Let's get back to the Doctor Who story.
Absolutely. No, I think that the fact that there's some of the script directions in here are fantastic, particularly at the end as they're trying to escape in the ice slide. I just get images of Carry On spying with everything being going backwards and looking ridiculous.
Oh, God,
yeah. Way back.
Yeah, the fact they actually specified that way of doing it was very interesting.
He was obviously contemplating a long career of gurning through being attacked by telephones and tentacles and you name it.
No, but it's good that there was that detail in there. You know, this is how we would do this is how we do that. The thing I still can't get over, and this is from this and previous when we did Pyramids, is how normal it was for people there to refer to Doctor Who does this, Doctor Who does that.
Oh yeah, this was before it became sort of standard. He was still credited as Doctor Who up until 1981.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we thought of him. We didn't think of him as the Doctor. And you know, I think it's quite an amusing sort of thing that sort of has developed in that, you know, some aspects of. So I remember people getting quite. I nearly said arsey. I said it now. People getting quite annoyed about the fact people calling him Doctor Who seemed to become a thing in the 80s. No, Doctor Who's just the name of the series. He's called the Doctor. So I think like people will still talk about the new Doctor Who. You know, I think in those days especially, people just generally thought that was his name, or that's how he was referred to. There wasn't a huge sort of I think it's more remarkable to us now because we're used to thinking of him as the Doctor, whereas 50 odd years ago, everybody just thought of him as Doctor Who.
It's funny though, but I mean, I remember I always think of it as Doctor Who. I'm going to watch Doctor Who, but I always thought of the Doctor.
Interesting.
And I think even when I was reading Target stuff, I think I just substituted this because the companions they never said, "Oh, what is it, Doctor Who?" And I said, "What is it, Doctor? What is it?" And that's where I suppose my brain went to, and I did that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of the Cushion films, and he's called Doctor Who in there, and they, you know, and so much of the spin-off media back in the day, like as we just, you know, as we keep saying, these unproduced ones, they sound like stories from TV comic or the annuals, because part of the aspect of that is in the old spin-off media, you know, he was called Doctor Who all the time. You know, it was even a lot of the early, I'm sure some of the early Target novels still used it.
No,
you know,
I think they did. Yeah,
it's just a sort of way that the perception of him, it's a good way of highlighting, I suppose, the way the perception of him has shifted over the years. But now we're so used to him, thinking of him as the Doctor, it does sort of detract. If we were recording this podcast in 1973, we probably wouldn't be commenting on as much on this as we are now. Did they have podcasts in 1973? No. But you know what I mean. Yeah, God, imagine that. Anyway.
And now on Radio 4, David discusses Doctor Who.
And now on Radio 4, a load of old arse about Doctor Who. Did they have Radio 4 in 1973? I don't know.
Yeah.
Did they have arses in 1973?
Well, you'd be the man to know, matey. That's not right.
Well, I can certainly say that I had
You've always
one.
been more of a breast man, haven't
And just to get a good old...
trying to make Kenny laugh. Look at he's trying to avoid laughing so he doesn't have to edit it. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's there for the YouTube viewers, so there you go.
Sorry, Ken.
You're not.
I had an arse in 1973, and I'm delighted to say that I still have the same one.
Well done. Well done.
Yep.
Like Dr.
You've only
John
had 2 new left buttocks and 3 right buttocks, but
Dr.
still the same one.
Dr.
If
John
you look
Darcy is the
after
Triggers Broom of the Power of 3 podcast.
It's like an Edwardian roadster. If you look after it and maintain it, it will give you years of service.
It's bright yellow.
Exactly.
Well, yes. Well, shall we return to the point?
Sorry, I'm being very immature.
Not at all.
I was going to ask whether Jon Pertwee had been watching Star Trek, and I think the episode is called Bread and Circuses.
Yes, I know. Yes,
the entertainment of the gladiators in a modern environment, and I actually thought, I wonder if he's seen that episode. It's not the same, but you wonder what his influences were, along with Doctor Who and all the other stuff he'd been watching.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah,
because I love
Again,
the way
if you
that
consider how often Pertwee would end up in arenas and, labyrinths and
Yeah. Well,
things like
labyrinths,
that,
that's the other thing. It's that mythology, isn't it? That he's delving, that Pertwee stories anyway, always are delving back into, like, if you had learned.
Yeah, I mean, talking about it now and listening to it here, like, you almost get the sense that did they just go, right, we'll cherry pick some of this stuff for the Time Monster? I mean, did they just, right, John, we're going to do... I mean, also, now you say that, I'm reminded of the fight in Curse of Peladon.
and the Three Doctors.
And the Three Doctors with Omega,
Yeah.
Omega. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, that's what it seemed like. It was derivative in itself, and obviously, elements of it have turned up. I mean, it'd be really good if someone turned up at now an unpublished interview with John or with Terence and Barry or whatever, where they talked about this, and Terence sort of saying how that they took some elements and used them. Because I mean, it's very coincidental, isn't it? Otherwise, that for this stuff, some of these ideas to turn up and
kidnapped scientists. And
yeah,
all
exactly.
That,
yeah.
And you wonder whether the mummies remained in somebody's memory and appeared in the Tom story.
Yeah,
because they were good monsters not to have used. And had we had mummies before? Had we had one mummy during the chase, or is that my imagination?
Frankenstein.
Oh, is that Frankenstein?
I think it's Frankenstein's a bit closest to it. Can I drop my behind-the-scenes trivia about the readings?
I dread think what this is. Okay.
Peter told me today, as we record, that he recorded episode 6 first and episode 2 second, because episode 6 was shorter and it was he felt he would warm up if he did that one, because he felt episode 2 was like, whoa! So he did episode 6 to warm up, to get his juices flowing before he did episode 2. So there you go, listeners. There's some behind the scenes info for you.
I didn't know that.
Davison doing Fort to Doomsday before Castrovalva.
Exactly. That's exactly what Peter was doing. And I'll try and get a photograph of Peter and reenacting his recordings to post on the socials this week. Hi, Peter, if you're listening.
Absolutely. If you have enjoyed Peter's readings, please email br2podcast@gmail.com and tell him how much you liked it.
But if you are Peter, you don't need to email.
And if you liked any of the other readings better than Peter's, then email Peter and tell him at br2podcast@gmail.com, and Peter will gnash his teeth and
yes. I have to say, everyone was wonderful though. They were really good, and I think you can definitely tell that our readers enjoy doing them. So it'd be nice to try and find some more to employ our readers to read for us again.
I have one that I'm intending to work on over the festive break for next year. So
interesting.
A Lost McCoy story.
Ooh.
So, interesting.
Yeah. But yes. So coming back to it, how do we feel about this one? Is it one that, if Big Finish announced they were doing, would you be quite excited to hear it? Or it'd be one of those, let's just leave it as it just not quite got that X factor to bring it to life?
I'd probably wait until it'd been out for 3 years and it was in a smash weekend sale and buy it for a third of the original price, if depending who was in it.
John?
I think if they gave it to a very good writer or script editor and said, come up with something from this, it has the germ of a really good story. And looking at it with the perspective of hindsight and saying, well, okay, this was right at the start of his tenure, and seeing how many, as we said, how many aspects of it perhaps were cherry-picked. I think it's not a failure of imagination on Pertwee's part, and it just shows you that, he must have been so enthused, so excited to be in this role and have this new aspect to his career after all those years in comedy. And it's kind of nice actually to see all this kind of fizzing creativity that he just wants to share with people. So I left with a warmer feeling, having found out who wrote it and when, because I didn't know when as well. I thought, well, I knew it was a missing Pertwee story, but I thought it could have been anywhere, written by anyone between 70 and 74, So
right.
For his 1970 story, or an 1870s attempt, I thought, no, this is better than I thought. So if it were reworked by a skillful hand, then I think it would be well worth a listen.
Yeah, John Dorney did a great job in Death World, so I nominate him. That was the other Three Doctors story for those.
Death World was excellent. If anyone hasn't heard it, it was really, really good. There was all three sort of lead doctors were excellent, and there was some really nice sort of touching sort of character sort of script moments for, versus their sort of relationship with each other. I was very, very moved whilst listening to it, and I was very pleasantly surprised that I was. It's an unconditional recommend on Death World, to be honest.
I think, like John, a big rework, I think it would be almost unrecognisable by the time it came to Big Finish. And I think it's a very visual script that they've done there. I don't see it adapting to another Doctor. I think, the fact that it's Pertwee and the Brig together, I do have the feeling that as he went, he talked about the athletes and everything else, he'd have wanted big names in there, recognisable for the time.
Yeah.
Dated it. For
Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks.
Absolutely. The pinnacles of peak perfection there. But so I'm not sure. I think it would be unrecognisable as an audio. I think the concept of the Doc and the Brig together, great, but why not just write something from scratch for a modern audience and let it go?
Well, there we go.
Hey.
So, listeners, you've heard it. What do you think? You can comment on our socials. You can find us on our Facebook group. We have Twitter at Power of 3Pod, 3 with the number 3. And we have Blue Sky at Finished Scene. And if you've enjoyed what we do, feel free to leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. So, gents, we're going to wind up now, but has anybody had any sort of suggestions for a song to play it with? I do have one, and I am going to risk it, but we'll tell you what it is in a minute.
I haven't actually given it a moment's thought, which is unlike me. Oh well, you'll have to surprise us.
Yeah. I haven't thought either.
There's not many songs about spare parts surgery or anything like that, are there? So, well, that's...
I was thinking maybe you play out with a theme to the Casualty or Hobby City, though. Do you know what seems to be really popular at the moment across the Whoniverse, if I'm allowed to use that word, is Starman. Have you seen... There's lots of cuts of lots of Doctors to Starman from David Bowie.
Interesting.
No, I've not seen that.
Did you not use Starman quite recently? Or am I confusing it with something else?
No, we did use it quite recently, actually.
I suggested the version by Golden Smog, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking of we could maybe get Mr. Pertwee to sing us out himself.
I never grow tired of hearing that. I think it's amazing. I want all the other Doctors to do it, please. If you're listening. No, you are.
Dave, you cut me off. I was going to say Yesterday.
Oh, right. I thought you meant you were going to say who's the Doctor.
Well, maybe we could have a jar and cacophony and merge one into the other and do a mix-up.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
That'll work.
Right,
goodbye, everyone. See you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yesterday, all my troubles seemed so far away.
Across the void beyond the mind, the empty space that circles time, I see where others stumble blind to seek a truth they never find. Eternal wisdom is my guide. I am the Doctor. Through cosmic waste the TARDIS flies to taste the secret source of life. A present science can't deny exists within, outside, behind.